This unit had engaged in this type of brutality before. This unit had engaged in excessive use of force against black citizens before. And Attorney Ramanucci and I plan to make sure that is pointed out in a civil case on behalf of Tyre Nichols, because as citizens have reached out to us and the family about this happened to them. There's a brother who said 4 or 5 days before this happened to Tyre, that same Scorpion unit confronted him while he was in his car going to get pizza. And he said that they used all kind of profanity against him. They threw him on the ground, where the drugs and where the weapons, and he was like Tyre, put a gun to his head. And this brother, after he survived this ordeal, he said he called to the police department twice, to internal affairs, twice. And they never responded to him. If they would have responded to him, we might not be here today.
That's right.
And so that's why we plan on making sure any citizen in Memphis who had to face the brutality of this Scorpion organized crime unit, I guess as they're distinguished, will come forward. We had an older gentleman, right, Mr. Reed?
66 years old.
66 years old, saying he was confronted by this unit and he was brutalized. And he had pictures of his injuries. And so it was foreseeable.
That's it.
It was foreseeable that something tragic like this was going to happen when you have police officers given, as Attorney Ramanucci and our legal team discussed, not just immunity, but impunity to trample on the constitutional rights of people who look a certain color, who lived in a certain community. And so we believe that this was a pattern in practice. And Tyre is dead because that pattern in practice went unchecked by the people who were supposed to check that. And I think we're so thankful to Chief Davis. Now, her leadership through this ordeal should be applauded as an example for other police chiefs.
That's it. That's it.
And leadership. But we agree with her when she says policy means nothing if you have a culture. If that culture is rotten, you can make all the policy in the world because the culture does not respect policy. We have to make sure that the culture not only respects the policy, but the culture respects the community.
That's it.
And that is what we have to do if we're going to give Tyre Nichols the proper legacy. And then finally, we think about, as Ms. Rovan said, they came to her house and they told her she couldn't go to the hospital. And it wasn't until 4 a.m. in the morning that the doctor called her. They told her that her son had been pepper sprayed and tased and that he was nearby. Never told them where they were at. And so we believe that we cannot allow anybody to ever cover up crimes against our loved ones in our community. It happens far too much in America. And we have to have this conversation over and over and over again until it stops. We have to talk about this institutionalized police culture
That's it.
that has this unwritten law that you can engage in excessive use of force against black and brown people. We have to have this conversation because this institutionalized police culture that suggests you can do this to people in certain communities who look a certain way cannot be tolerated. It doesn't matter if the officer is a black officer, a Hispanic officer, or a white officer. It is the culture that allows them to think they can do this to Tyre, that they can do this to Keenan Anderson in Los Angeles, California, that they can do it to Byron Williams in Las Vegas. I mean, to come and attack a black man just for riding on a bicycle. It is the culture. And we have to call out this culture every time we get a chance. We gonna call it out?
Call it out.
Call out the culture.
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 We have to call out the culture. And that has to be the conversation. Or those hashtags will continue to pile up quicker than we can keep up. And the only way, this is just the first steps to getting justice for Tyre Nichols. The only way we get full justice for Tyre Nichols is it's the institutionalized police culture that is on trial today. And the only way we get justice for Tyre Nichols is if we call out this institutionalized police culture so we can get full justice for Tyre Nichols. 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 Thank you all. Now you're going to hear from a great lawyer who fights for civil rights all across America, who I'm so proud to fight with yet again on the front line. My brother, Attorney Tony Ramanucci, will greet you, and then we will continue on with the press conference.
Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I do have a few points to cover with you today. We were just here before you a few days ago. But we have to lead from the top because I really do want to talk to you a little bit about these criminal charges, the gravity of the criminal charges, and what it means not only to these officers but to this city, state, and our country. Remember, this supposedly emanated from a traffic stop which turned deadly. And we talked about what we saw in the video when we were here before you Monday, that these were, some of them were unmarked squad cars. These were not all officers in uniform, only partially of them were. You can call this the Scorpion unit, if that's what you want to call it. But what these really are, because I do happen to have subject matter expertise on these cases, these are suppression units. These are saturation units. And what they really turn out to be are oppression units. And what they do is they wind up oppressing the people that we care about the most, our children, our young sons and daughters, who are black and brown because they are the most vulnerable. Make no mistake, Tyre Nichols at all times was an innocent victim on that night. He did nothing wrong. He was caught up in a sting. This Scorpion unit was designed to saturate under the guise of crime fighting, and what it wound up doing instead was creating a continual pattern and practice of bad behavior. As Ben told you, there are others who are out there who have had similar experiences, and I will dare say that when we get all the records that we need, that we will see a significant delta, a disparity between the use of force of the Scorpion unit and that of the regular Memphis Police Department, and statistically on average across the country. And that is because these saturation units are given whispered impunity. Ben said it, not immunity, but whispered impunity in order to carry out their design. They can't collect guns, they can't find stolen cars unless they unwittingly trap innocent people in this web. Therefore, we are asking Chief Davis to disband this Scorpion unit effective immediately. The intent of the Scorpion unit has now been corrupted. It cannot be brought back to center with any sense of morality and dignity, and most importantly, trust in this community. How will the community ever trust a Scorpion unit? And that's what we are asking for. The intent was good, the end result was a failure. And we must recognize that and do something about it. And I call on all chiefs in this country to review their saturation units, to review their special squad units, and disband them, because they can easily become corrupted when they are told, they are whispered in their ear, act with impunity. Now, one of the charges is kidnapping. We're going to talk about the second-degree murder. But think about the weight of a kidnapping charge being brought against officers who are wearing a badge, a shield, carrying weapons on their duty belt, acting under the color of law. When has that happened in this country? And part of the definition of kidnapping in the Tennessee statute is that it's something that I'm going to give another analogy to. When you think of 9/11, what's the word that comes to mind? Terrorism. When you think of other heinous acts that have happened in churches across this country, any act of terrorism, what does that instill in you? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the definition that we are dealing with here on this kidnapping charge. It is terrorism. It was designed to terrorize the victim. This young man, by definition of the law in this state, was terrorized. Not by one, not by two, but by 5 officers who we now know that the charges brought actually state that they acted in concert with each other. They acted together as that pack of wolves to inflict harm, terrorism, oppression of liberty, oppression of constitutional rights, which led to murder. I just talked about all the charges in nearly one sentence. That is how this case is going to be defined. This was an intentional act once those officers were there. They knew their actions were going to cause death, and indeed it did. Sadly, it did. We will take questions at the end of this, but I do want to pick up on one thing that Ben has said, and if I may add, this is the spokesperson for civil rights in this country. We want to know, where are the unions? Where does the Fraternal Order of Police stand on this? We have not heard from you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear you say that what happened to Tyre, what happened to this family, should never, ever happen again. That you condemn the brutality, the savagery, the terrorism, the heinousness, the vulgarity of these actions. And we should all stand for that. You don't have to be a police union. We all have to just have a soul and a heart. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Attorney Ramanucci. You know, one of the things that must be stated about the kidnapping charge, Sarah, when you all see this video, you're going to see Tyre Nichols is calling out for his mom. He calls out 3 times for his mother. His last words on this earth is Mom, Mom, Mom. I mean, he's screaming for her. And when you think about that kidnapping charge, he said, I just want to go home. I mean, it's a traffic stop, for God's sake. A traffic stop. A simple traffic stop. He's kidnapped for a simple traffic stop?
Think about that.
I mean, yeah, this is such an important case. Such an important case. And I continue to think about people like Terrence Crutcher and people who, for simple things, having car trouble, and they end up dead when they encounter the police. Corey Jones, having car trouble. When black people have simple encounters with police, they end up dead. We don't hear about these things with our white brothers and sisters. We don't see the videos of the police doing the most with white citizens when they're routine, simple matters. And that's why we got to continue to speak to this police culture in America. It does get emotional because I know what you're all about to see, America. And as much as those 5 officers killed Tyre Nichols, it was the police culture in America that killed Tyre Nichols. So you're going to hear from our civil rights leader here in Memphis. He's standing with many other great civil rights leaders, the SCLC, and I know the National Urban League is also a great presence here in Memphis. But we want to introduce to you one of our co-counselors who is a great civil rights leader here, our NAACP president for the Memphis chapter, Attorney Van Turner.
Justice for Tyre!
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 My name is Van Turner, and I'm here for Justice for Tyre. I could really go take my seat after that. It's really that simple. There's not much else to say. We know the video would be horrific. We know that this happened at Ross and Raines. I just found out that this was in an area that I represented as a county commissioner, and part of what we did on the commission was put skycop cameras up in that community to help combat crime. Little did we know we would be combating this type of criminal behavior as well. Isn't that something?
Yes.
We put skycop cameras up to assist the police in fighting crime in our community, and yet they come and commit the very same crimes that we're trying to fight against. But glory be to God that a skycop camera was there to catch what happened. And so we want to again stand with this family. I'm here with my cohort, Vicky Terry. She's the executive director. We fight together for the cause of the NAACP. Know that President Derrick Johnson has sent his regards. He has sent his soldiers down from the national office of the NAACP to stand next to this family. Know that the NAACP national organization is standing with this family, and we will fight to the end. We will fight with Attorney Ben Crump. We will fight with this family. We will fight with Push, and we will fight with all those who are seeking justice for Tyre. We want to thank Pastor Thomas for opening this church up again. Y'all thank Pastor Thomas. Give him a hand. We want to thank all those who are here fighting for justice for Tyre. I was at the candlelight vigil last night, and it was such a beautiful look. All of Memphis came together. Folks who you wouldn't think could come together came together in support of this family. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to stand united. We're going to peacefully protest, but we're going to protest. We're going to make sure that policy is put forth and implemented correctly. And we're going to make sure that Tyre Nichols did not die in vain.
Amen.
We're going to make sure that he not die in vain. We're going to keep fighting for him. We're going to keep fighting for this family. Y'all pray for this family. Y'all pray for our city. Tonight will be one of the toughest nights that we've ever experienced in this city. But we will get through it.
Amen.
We will get through it.
Amen.
Let's stick together. Let's fight together. Justice for Tyre!
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 Thank you very much.
Ms. Vicki Tyler Ms. Vicki Terry, the executive director of the NAACP, want to say a brief word.
Good morning, all. And I just wanted to let Ms. Wells know she is not alone as a mother. I am a mother, and I stand here with you, Ms. Wells, proclaiming that there will be a Tyre Nichols law in Memphis, Tennessee. If there is anything that I am saying this today, we will fight together. We will support Ms. Wells and the Tyre Nichols family. I was listening to her this morning, and as a mother, my heart was breaking right along with yours, Ms. Wells. I was in tears all morning because of what is going on in this city, because of what happened to Tyre Nichols. Ms. Wells, I want to say thank you for birthing Tyre, because he is the individual that is going to turn this city around. And as Attorney Crump said, Memphis is the blueprint for what is going to happen across the country. Thank you so much. Ms. Wells, we are here for you. As a mother, I am here. And I promise to do what I said that I'm going to do, and that is to make Tyre Nichols a law in this city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Executive Director. They wanted first-degree murder. They were not bashful about that. And when you see the video tonight, you will understand that if this was your child, you would want first-degree murder too. But they are respectful and accepting of those charges that the district attorney brought, and they will thank them in their own way. Now you will hear from Tyre's daddy. He's his stepfather, but as his mom and his brothers and sisters said, that's his daddy. Let's give a big round of applause for the man standing strong for his family, Mr. Rodney Wells.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I just wanted to say that, as Mr. Crump just stated, I did push for murder one from the beginning. That was my main goal. But as the charges were told to us and they explained to us what the difference between murder one and murder two was, we're very satisfied with the charges. More importantly, we want peace. We do not want any type of uproar. We do not want any type of disturbance. We want peaceful protests. That's what the family wants. That's what the community wants. They're all I got a text today from one of my supervisors about an alert, telling her don't be in the crowds tonight. We shouldn't have that. We need to do this peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
The family is very satisfied with the process, with the police chief, the DA. They acted very, very quickly in this case. Yes. We are very, very pleased with that.
Yes.
Other cases drag on, but this is a special case. We had a special son.
Yeah.
That prompted the quickness of this results. So, as of the Tyre Nichols family, please, please protest, but protest safely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rodney Wells. And now we're going to hear from Ms. Rovon Wells, who you talking about dignity and grace personified. Said my son is an assignment from God. Let that sink in. Your son being sacrificed, his life, so that we can have a greater chance at justice for all. Ms. Rovon Wells will now address you. Give her a big round of applause.
Hello. Thank you all for coming and showing support for my family and my son. I really appreciate everything everyone is doing. My son is looking down smiling because, it's funny. He always said he was going to be famous one day. I didn't know this is how he was going to, this is what he meant, but if...
Take your time.
I really don't know what else to say right now. I've said so many things in the last few days, and really I want to say I've never seen the video, but what I've heard is very horrific, very horrific. And any of you who have children, please don't let them see it.
Ask for prayer. That's right. You can just ask for prayer. That'll be good.
I just want to ask for prayer for my family, for this whole community. And I want to say to the 5 police officers that murdered my son, you also disgraced your own families. But you know what? I'm going to pray for you and your families, because at the end of the day, this shouldn't have happened.
No, that's right.
This just shouldn't have happened. And we want justice for my son. Justice for my son.
Justice for Tyre.
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 I just want to thank everybody again for coming. I don't have it. I have a lot of words that I want to say, but they're just not coming out right.
Now you're fine.
And I still haven't had time to grieve yet. I'm still dealing with the death of my son. This was not supposed to happen. My son was supposed to be with me today. I'm going to always know that I'll always be with him, because I told everyone he has a tattoo of my name on his arm. My son loved me to death, and I loved him to death.
Yes.
And so this is very difficult for me. I'm sorry if I'm not articulating myself a little bit better.
No, you're doing fine.
No mother should go through what I'm going through right now. No mother to lose their child to the violent way that I lost my child. Thank you.
Painful to listen to Ravon Wells, the mother of Tyre Nichols, in Memphis today. You can see with attorney Ben Crump and other leaders in the community asking for protest, but to make sure that the protests are peaceful. Both Ravon Wells asking for prayer for her family, for her son, her husband Rodney Wells asking again that everything remain peaceful in that community. You heard from Ben Crump and from other attorneys for the family saying it does not matter the color of the skin of the officers, that they should be held accountable for what happened on that day. But they also said they expect this to be the playbook moving forward for quick action on the part of authorities to go after officers involved in cases like this one. I want to bring in Elwyn Lopez. She's live in Memphis for us. She's been covering this case from the start. And Elwyn, we expected to hear the plea from the family for peace, and that is in fact what we heard here this afternoon.
That's absolutely right, David. The family attorney saying that they applauded the DA's swift reaction to this, those charges brought against the officers in less than 20 days. And as you mentioned, they hope that this will be the blueprint for all fatal police encounters, regardless of race. You also heard the mother there speaking. They really want a Tyre Nichols to be a staple, to be a law, so that there is a duty to intervene when they see others committing a crime, even if it's against their fellow officers. That is something that they emphasized in that press conference. But also they said they were satisfied with the second-degree murder charges. Initially, the stepfather said that he wanted first-degree murder charges, but after the charges were explained to them, he said that they are satisfied, they are pleased with those charges. And David, the police chief, is saying that the actions of those officers failing basic humanity. That is how she described it. And of course, we know that there will be an independent review of operations and policies within those specialized units. David.
Elwyn, one quick follow-up for you. This was a detail offered by one of the attorneys there moments ago, and we'll, of course, report this out as we move forward. But Tommy Romanucci saying that some of these officers were in unmarked vehicles, were not necessarily in the uniform that you would expect given the unit that they were a part of. Obviously, we'll report this out, but that's just one of the things they're calling for as far as change moving forward.
Yeah, that's right. The attorney was talking about this unit as a street crime unit known as Scorpion. They say that they believe there was a pattern of excessive use of force that will be looked into. They said that it will also be part of a civil suit. But of course, we will expect to hear more after that video is released. David.
Elwyn Lopez in Memphis covering this case for us. Elwyn, thank you. Also reporting on this, our Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas, as he always does. And Pierre, we expected that this would be a difficult afternoon. We're expecting it to be even more difficult once this video is released. Talk to us a little bit about strategy, and I hate to use that word, but the strategy here to sort of de-escalate how difficult this is going to be by talking about it, by getting out there ahead of it. They're hopeful that this will actually be effective in calling for protests, but making sure that they're peaceful.
Absolutely, David. Law enforcement officials have been briefed on this case. The FBI director has seen the video even before it's been released. I spoke with a federal official last night who had also viewed the video. They're describing it as horrible, horrific, and there's an unusual amount of coordination to basically let people know beforehand that this is awful, prepare yourself for it to be awful. But they are hopeful that people will not respond in a violent way. You heard the father-in-law basically say that he hopes that all the responses will be peaceful. But the coordination, David, is because this particular case, and the way it's been described to me, is reflective of something that the African-American community has dealt with time and time again. routine traffic stops ending in death in terms of officers using excessive force. They know it's a painful area for people of color. They know people will want to respond in some fashion. They're just encouraging people to stay calm and to try to get out ahead of it, David.
And Pierre, on the issue of race, you and I were talking before we came on the air here today with this special report. You heard Ben Crump there say that it does not matter race, color of skin when you're talking about the officers, that they must be held accountable in this case and in every case. But you also heard him say there the speed with which this was handled by both the prosecutors, the DA, and the chief of police ought to be a blueprint moving forward with officers in other communities when there is a video like the one that this country will witness a little later today.
David, I should just say pain is colorblind. Pain is colorblind. And to hear that family today speak, to hear the mother speak of losing a son that she wished was here with her right now. The issue here, David, again, whether it's a black officer or a white officer, and I'm not quite sure yet we know the response of the community, given the fact that these are all black officers. It may give new meaning to black-on-black crime. They are charged with attempted, kidnapping, manslaughter, murder. What we do know is that, again, the African-American community in particular has had to deal with this time and time again. And that is the struggle that the country continues to deal with.
I'm so glad you made the point also, Pierre, that we don't know what reaction will be. We know there will be obvious anger, obvious disappointment, obvious outrage. How that will manifest itself is a larger question, and you and I are always, at least we attempt to be so cautious on stories like these about talking about any kind of reaction before we in fact see it as a country. So Pierre, I appreciate your caution and your care as always. Thank you, Pierre. Stick with us here, Pierre, and the rest of the team, because there's another story breaking at this hour. A short time ago, a judge in San Francisco now releasing the police body camera video in the attack on former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, at his call to 911. And we warn you that this video is also disturbing. It is difficult. We're not going to show you much of it. Officers arriving to see an intruder at the door holding Paul Pelosi with one hand, both men struggling over a hammer. Obviously, we're not going to show what happens next. David DePape then hitting Mr. Pelosi in the head with that hammer as officers rushed through the door, tackling him to the floor. He allegedly broke in just after 2 a.m. That was back on October 28th. Paul Pelosi was home alone at the time. There you see at the doorway Paul Pelosi, David DePape, the hammer, the hand connected. They say drop the hammer, and of course, that's chilling that we're freezing the video there in and of itself. We're not going to move any further than that. Obviously, our team working through this at this hour. Prosecutors say he planned to kidnap, torture Speaker Nancy Pelosi and had a hit list of elected officials to pay pleading not guilty to attempted murder, burglary, and elder abuse. We should mention that authorities say it took him 16 blows and an entire body slam just to break through the glass to get into the home in San Francisco on that night. And once they were inside, they recovered 2 hammers, a pair of rubber gloves, and a sword on the premises of that attack. Again, we're seeing for the first time the images from the attack on Paul Pelosi, showing you just a couple of frames of it there. It makes the point that that was a very disturbing scene when authorities arrive. I want to bring in our chief congressional correspondent, Rachel Scott. Rachel, I know in the last 24 hours, Speaker Pelosi intimating that she had nothing to do with the release of this. Obviously, this is trauma that she and her family continue to go through, live through, as now the American people see at least part of the horror of that night.
The horror, David, and that is chilling and graphic video that we just showed there, the first time that we are seeing those images. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi just moments ago said that she does not have any comment on this right now, that she may have more to say later. She obviously respects the legal system, but she said that this is a long road to recovery at this point for her husband, Paul, that they are taking this day by day, that it could be 3 to 4 months before he actually heals from some of those head injuries that he sustained during this attack. She's also spoken about this in recent weeks, about how guilty she feels herself, that this was an attacker that was on the hunt for her, that was looking for her, and in the end it was her husband who paid the price, David.
Rachel Scott, our chief congressional correspondent, on the release of the videos a short time ago involving the attack on Paul Pelosi, the husband of former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Rachel, our thanks to you as well. Obviously a very heavy news day on this Friday as we continue to cover these two stories. The death of Tyre Nichols, his parents speaking moments ago as Memphis and the country braces for this video that will be difficult later today. Disturbing is the word used to describe it by authorities in that community. And of course, the Paul Pelosi video as well. Our team will continue to carefully work on these stories throughout the afternoon. We'll be back with a complete report a little later today on World News Tonight. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. I'm David Muir in New York. Good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
We don't want that. We want fairness, as you were saying, DeMar.